Hello, and welcome back to Advent of Code 2023, part 2 of day 1. And so if you watched the previous video, if you've already done part 1 of day 1, you'll know that we were given a text file that included a bunch of different codes, and there were some digits throughout those, so all we had to do was combine the first digit in the code with the last digit, and then we just had to sum them all up. In part 2, we have the calculation isn't necessarily correct, and that there are some digits spelled out with letters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up through 9 does not include 0, actually. And so if we actually go look in here, we'll see that, oh, the first code has a 7. The second code has a 3 and a 4 mixed in there, and then some even end with a 5. This also has 7 in here and a 9. And so what we need to do here is, instead of just looking for the digits, we need to also look for the word. So if a word comes before a digit, that's going to be counted as a digit, and just kind of continue like normal. So if we start thinking here, how are we going to relate the word of such as 8 to the actual number? So we're going to need to use a hash map over in Java. And so let's go ahead and create a class and get everything set up. So just like part 1, we're going to go ahead and read in the whole entire file and put every single line into an array list. So we'll create an array list of strings called lines, which is equal to a new array list. Then we're going to use a try with resources block. So try with a buffered reader called br, which is equal to a new buffered reader given a new file reader, which is also given the file name. And we're just gonna actually copy the path reference from the content root and then paste that in there, open up the braces, add a catch block with IO exception, and then we would just print the stack trace if anything happens here. And so from here, we'll just create a string line is equal to br.readLine, which just holds the first line within this file. And then we'll say while line is not null, then we're going to just append the line that we read into lines. So lines.add line, and then make sure we update line to be the new line, and then we should be good. And so let's go ahead and just make sure that everything's working again, and just print out lines dot get. Let's just pick a random number. Let's go with like 100 or so, and just see if something kind of random pops out here. So we get AFF or AFNN, and so if we go look over here and go to like line 100, we get, or 101 technically, we get AFNNGJR. And the reason that it's on line 101 is because the array list is indexed starting at 0, but yet the file starts at 1, so we're going to get a 1 offset here. Since we have words in our input.txt that need to be converted over to like a digit representation, we should go ahead and work with a map. So over here, I've created a static hash map that maps from a string to a string, the first string being the word, the second one being a digit, and we're just going to call it map, and we're going to say it's going to be a new hash map. The reason that this is outside of the main method is that it's going to be used in later methods down below the main method, and so that we can access this from any of the static methods. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to say map.put, and we're going to go ahead and put the word 1 in as the string representation of 1, and then do all the remaining numbers up through 9. So here's what our map looks like. Again, 1 is mapped to 1, 4 is to 4, 9 is to 9, and all that good stuff. And so this will be later used on to iterate through the keys and all the values in the map, which will help us greatly as we progress through this solution. The next step that we need to take is to go ahead and find the calibration value. But we're going to go ahead and create a method that's just going to find the very first digit in our line that we would have been passed. So we're not going to iterate over every single line in this method. Instead, we'll do that over in the main method and just pass a single line off to a different method. So let's go ahead and go down here and we'll say public static int, which is just going to find the very first digit. and, or actually we'll go ahead and just return a string instead. That's just going to be matching with our map up here. So public static string, and we're going to say get first number. And it's going to take a string line. And over here, we're just going to iterate through all of the keys and the values that we have within our map and see if they are in the line. And so we're just going to use the index of method on a string because that finds the very first index of such a substring. But in another method, we're going to use the last index of to find, you know, like the last digit and whatnot. So anyway, before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's just go ahead and write out our first for loop that's going to iterate over all the keys. And so we can go ahead and have for string word, since technically the keys in our map are just words. So string word that is in map.keyset. And then we just need to check an index. So if int, well, first off, let's make the index. So index is equal to line.index of word. So now we need to do a kind of check here. So if the index is equal to -1, or let's just go with not equal to -1, because if it's -1, that means that it doesn't exist within the line. So therefore we don't need to worry about it. Otherwise, if it's 0 or more, then that is an index that it is located at. So if it's not -1, we can go ahead and put in the value. So we need to have a map here that we will later on iterate through and see where was the lowest index that we found something at. So we'll go ahead and create a hash map of strings to integers. The string is just representing the word or the digit that we found, and the integer is going to be the index that we found it at. So we'll go ahead and say number to index is what it will be named, and it's going to be equal to a new hash map. So here, if it's not -1, again, we found the word, so we can go ahead and put that into our number to index. So we can say number to index dot put the word that we found at this index that we also found it to be at. So this is just searching through the map key set. We can do something very similar for the value set. So if we just copy this and we say string digit instead, because we're iterating over digits up in the map, and we'll say values here instead. And so we're going to go ahead and get the index of where that digit is located by calling this on digit instead, and then we'll just put the digit in the index. So at this point in our code, for just a single line, we have found all the indices of where the keys are located and the digits. The next part we need to do is find what is the lowest index that we found. So what we can do is we can just say int lowest index is equal to, let's go ahead and do integer dot max value. Now this doesn't necessarily matter, you can just make it some insanely large one, but we're just going to say it's going to be equal to the max value, so that when we hit the very first digit, we can go ahead and just assign that first digit into our lowest index, because there should be no index that is at the max integer value. So what we'll do here is go ahead and just iterate over all of the keys that we have in our number to index map. So for string, let's just go with number, I guess, that is located in our number to index key set. And we're going to go ahead and just pull every single one out of there. So we'll say if number to index dot get the number that is within the keys that we have. So if it is less than our lowest index, because remember we're getting the index out of the map here. So if it's less than the lowest index, then we'll just go ahead and say lowest index is equal to this value right here. So we'll just copy that, paste. And so now lowest index is up to date. And once we iterate through this whole entire for loop, we should go ahead and get the lowest index, or really, yes, the lowest index that we have found. And we can go ahead and assign that to some sort of value. So we'll also just go ahead and have a string, we'll just call it, I don't know, digit or word. We'll just go ahead and go with string value instead here because we don't know if it'll be a word or like necessarily a digit. So we'll just assign that to an empty string. And so then we'll go ahead and say value is going to be equal to the number that we found. And so down here, we're going to need to do some sort of conversion to an integer, or really it just needs to be to a string. So what we'll do is we'll just return the value that we have here, and we'll just see what it prints out at the end. So we'll just say return value. And so at the end of this method, we're really just looking to get the first number. So up in our main method, let's go ahead and create a for loop. So for string line that is in lines, let's go ahead and just print out get first number given the line. And let's see what the first number is in every single line. And it might help if we printed out the line along with it, just to get some better sense of what's going on here. So over here, we have 39651, and we print out a 3. Over here, we get 8, which is our very first word that we find, and we print the word 8. Now, our next step is just converting words over into just their digit representation, but also in a string format. So let's go back down to our get first number method, and we'll say if value.length is equal to 1, which means that we found a digit, we're fine. We don't need to do anything. Or really, we can just go not equal to 1, because we're definitely going to find some kind of value in here. And so this is saying if it's not equal to 1, which is saying, hey, you actually have a word here instead, we need to convert that. So then we can just say value is equal to map.get and then the value. And so when we go do let's say that value was 1, like the word 1, it's going to go up here, it's going to look at 1, and then it's just going to return to us the digit 1 in string form, and then we return it. So down here, let's go ahead and run it, and we should get only digits. So here again, we preserve that 3. Over here, 8 got turned into an 8. 8 is also turned into an 8 here, 5's turned into 5. And we look like we're golden here. The next thing that we need to do is get the last digit, which is just going to be a very similar method to what we had for get first number. Now we just need to copy the whole entire thing and make a little bit of an adjustment. Let's go ahead and copy this. So get first number, and then go down here and paste, and we're going to call this get last number given a string line. And so we're going to have the same kind of map. We're just going to look for all the numbers and stuff. But instead of doing index of, we need to call last index of to get the last index of something. So really it's going to be doing a search from right to left. So we've done a last index of search right here. We also need to do it on this when we're iterating through all of the values in the map. And then instead of doing a check right here of less than, we need to make this an integer. So the lowest index can honestly just be, or we're going to need to call this something different. We're going to need to say highest index is equal to -1. And so down here, we're going to just have another string value again. We're going to iterate over all the keys within our number to index map. And then we'll say if the number.toIndex.getNumber is greater than our highest index, then the highest index is going to get updated, and our value will be updated as well. Again, we just need to do the same thing of converting this over into an actual digit. So we do that right here, and then we just return the value. So what we can do here is instead of doing this print statement right here, we can go ahead and do a printf statement instead. And we're just going to print out the 2 digits that we found. So we'll just go ahead and call get first number given the line, and then get last number given the line, and we should be good. So let's go ahead and see what this prints out and see if we get any errors. So here we get 31. First digit was a 3, the last digit was a 1. Over here we get 88, so we have the word 8, and then the last number it looks like we found is 8 there. Let's also check for, there should be kind of an issue. Yep. So right here we have an 8, but that's the only one that was found. But when we go to search right, this is also the lowest and the highest index, so we're just going to get an 88 here. Lastly, we just need to go ahead and create a running sum. So after we do all these put statements, we can also have a sum, which is equal to 0. And so since we're iterating over all the lines, we can just go ahead and do a plus equals to the sum here. So we'll just do sum plus equals, and then we need to convert the two strings that we found, the first digit and the last digit, over into an integer. So we'll just do integer.parseInt get first number given a line. And so here we're just summing up the first number and the last number, but really what's going on in here, is that these are two strings right here, and we're just concatenating them to be one, and that's what the advent of code is asking of us to do. And so it's just a string concatenation rather than integer, but once they're concatenated, then they're parsed into an integer, which is then added to the sum. And so once this for loop is over with, we can go ahead and print this out to the screen. We can say sum is, and then we can just do a %d because it's a whole number, and then print the sum. So let's go ahead and run this real quick. And we get the sum is 53,312. Let's go put that in over here as our answer, submit, and we get that's the right answer, and we got 1 gold star. So we're just one step closer to restoring all the snow operations over in Advent of Code. Now I know that this was a little bit messy, and it's quite of a long solution, and there's a billion different ways I feel like that you can go about solving this, but I felt like this is kind of the most approachable way of going about it by just using maps and mapping different values to everything. But if you're ever confused or anything, just put a comment down and I might be able to explain it a little bit better for you. But thank you for sticking around and watching me code this. I hope that this makes a little bit of sense to you, and please subscribe to see more Advent of Code solutions. Thank you.